another event that's happening, and that's the attempted coup that's happening in Venezuela with the quote unquote I guess pretend president Juan Guaido is actually calling for a military coup, and so I just want to get down to the nitty gritty of what's happening. So the quote unquote interim president Juan Guaido is basically appeared in a video with uniformed men saying he had military support. He's basically making a statement that President Nicolas Maduro is not the legitimate ruler of Venezuela, and he's basically asking for the military forces of Venezuela to stand by his side. Unfortunately, in this case, the military didn't decide to go along with it. I guess we avoided for a time being a civil war in Venezuela.
I think there's skepticism that these military people he has standing behind them are actually defectors from the military. Are they opposition leaders?
They could be opposition leaders from the political parties in Venezuela. They could be anybody really. But as far as it stands right now, the majority of the military officers within Venezuela's military are still staying with the legitimate government. And so far, the armed forces have stood by Mr. Maduro, despite dozens of countries, including the United States, United Kingdom, most of Latin America, recognizing Juan Guaido as Venezuela's rightful leader. Now, first, I want everyone to remember that Juan Guaido lost that election, and this is
he didn't even run in that election.
Yeah, exactly. So, thank you.
He won his election to the General Assembly and then declared himself president and said that Maduro's election was illegitimate. And it's like, okay, well then why does that make you? What are you talking about?
Playing pretend. Come on.
Well, there's also another thing to take away from this too, and that is he's basically inciting a civil war with the backing of Western powers in order to destabilize the country, because we need to remember what's in Venezuela: oil, lots of it, more than Saudi Arabia. And this is something that most of the military-industrial complex, the military-industrial complex and the fossil fuel industry really want. And they want a government that's going to be more beneficial to them. And so what do you want to do? You basically want to cause more sanctions, and you want to destabilize the region in order to basically put in your own puppet government. But it's not working, and already there's conflict between some of the pro-supporters of Juan Guaido, but Maduro's people are basically staying behind him. I mean, we have to remember, how would we feel if somebody did this to our country? Right. We wouldn't like it if somebody was interfering with our elections or interfering between a political confrontation between the Democrats and Republicans.
It's not like we have a history of doing this in South America and
Chile
and Haiti.
Or even in Venezuela.
Yeah,
we've already done it in Venezuela in 2002. Hugo Chavez.
15, 17 years we've been trying to overthrow the Bolivarian governments of Venezuela because they just aren't playing ball with the United States. Now, I think what we have today in our show is an interesting case study, because this is the BBC's coverage, and there are links in the description. This is the BBC's coverage of these events, and sort of ask yourself, what information are they putting out? What are they saying? What aren't they saying?
Well, here's basically what they're saying.
Because we're going to cover another story, also from the British press, but from the Independent, that will shed a little more light on it and give a less sort of Western media perspective.
I'm glad that you mentioned it, because here in this article, it's mostly pro Juan Guaido. And it's all in his support and in his name, and basically they're saying like Juan Guaido's the guy who's trying to bring in liberty and freedom. But remember, liberty and freedom in the United States and the military-industrial complex and the fossil fuel lobby, when you put those things together, that doesn't mean freedom.
We're only humanitarians when there's oil or some sort of profit to be had. Like, we don't care about humans. Come on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and especially brown and black humans. Are you out of your mind? Come on.
Exactly.
That is not the priority over here.
We're going to go into Libya and take the country with the best human rights record in all of Africa and make sure that it has an open slave trade, because we need to just spread our democracy everywhere.
And then, not to mention, to forget when Clinton said, we came, he saw, he died.
Look at this section of this article. What is the international community saying? All right, UN General Secretary says that both sides should avoid violence. He also doesn't recognize Guaido as the official leader. They don't mention that. But Secretary Pompeo is behind Guaido. Bolton's behind Guaido. Of course they are.
Of course they are.
Spain warned against bloodshed. Okay, yeah, we don't like violence. This is kind of an easy thing to say. Brazilian president is behind Guaido. Really? Like the Brazilian Trump, like the guy who's super anti-gay. Like that's the guy we're like, they like us. You want to tout that?
No.
The Colombian president is behind Guaido. The Bolivian president is behind, and Cuban
Maduro.
president are behind Maduro.
Yes.
So that's the other one's like, yeah, but Cuba is behind Maduro. I'm surprised they didn't mention Russia.
I mean, if you don't know anything else about this story, just looking at the supporters of Guaido alone, that in and of itself should tell you like where this is originating from, where this is coming from, and whether or not it's something that, you know, is in integrity with your own beliefs. Like, you know, generally speaking, what comes out of the Trump administration is something that I'm not going to agree with. So what's really interesting now, though, is like the propaganda that is being spread about what's going on in Venezuela is overarching all of that critical thinking, all of that, like, wait a minute, what is actually going on here? And why is the United States getting involved in this? And why are they putting it under this guise of like a humanitarian effort when we're not doing humanitarian efforts outside other places? Trump just vetoed a resolution to get out of Yemen. Like, he doesn't care about humanitarian causes. So there's some incongruency here. Even if you don't know what's going on in Venezuela, which honestly, like, I hear such differing opinions from both sides that I can't honestly say that I do know what's going on. But what I do know is the leaders that I generally am anti are the leaders that are supporting this coup.
It's amazing to me that everyone's like, oh, we can't trust the Trump administration because Russia and there's an interference and we can't trust them, but they want to go have a coup in Venezuela. We should support that. That part's good, but Russia.
Right.
There's also another thing to take away too, is also the silence from the quote unquote left, especially from Democratic leaders. Bernie Sanders evolved on his opinion in regards to Venezuela, but in regards towards one presidential candidate, Tulsi Gabbard has been correct on her assessment of Venezuela and really why we shouldn't be involved, why we shouldn't be taking any sides, because this is a problem between the people of Venezuela and their political system. Again, we as a country and the American taxpayer, we've been doing this to other sovereign countries for a very long time in order to make sure that we have more influence in the Western Hemisphere and in other regions of the planet. And because of this, if things continue to go down this route, there will be such a humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, in South America. We're going to see a mass exodus of people leaving a war zone. And then what's going to happen? You're going to have refugees. And a lot of these people want to go to someplace safe, whether it's in Brazil, whether it's in Mexico, or even here in the United States. And does the American taxpayer really want that on their conscience? Do we want to fund a civil war that's going to kill millions of people and destabilize a region in South America? I don't think so. I don't want to do that, and neither should anyone else. And I think the Democrats, if they're so against Trump, they should be against this concept or this idea of a coup in Venezuela.
I mean, couldn't have said it better.
So there we go.